the favorite at 2 to
He's
1.
a terrible bet
On
at 3 to
paper.
1.
I love the odds of eight.
So who are we all
It's
picking?
this field that is not a good bet.
They're off.
Hi everybody, Dan Illman, Mike Beer for BC Focus, taking a look at the major contenders for this year's Breeders' Cup Sprint. Before we do, I have to remind you about the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge. There's a lot of money on the line in this year's BC. $1.25 million. That's the cash prize pool. We're at Del Mar for the Breeders' Cup November 1st and 2nd. Register today, breederscup.com/BCBC. And the Classic is going to be a major pivotal factor in the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge. It's race number 8 on Saturday. It's the anchor leg of a pick 5. It's the first leg of a pick 5. Tickets still available, by the way, for the Breeders' Cup. Go to breederscup.com. It'll be a great experience at a beautiful venue, Del Mar. Let's take a look at the top 10 contenders for the Breeders' Cup Sprint as ranked by preliminary morning line set by Daily Racing Form's Brad Free. It's a wide open edition of this year's sprint. Head on over to drf.com/Breeders' Cup for all of the pre-entries and the latest news. Skelly is the 7-2 morning line favorite, Mike, and Skelly was on a roll for a while. He reeled off 7 wins in a row, and then he went overseas and he ran pretty well when second in the Riyadh Dirt Sprint. Although he did win upon arriving back to the United States, it just doesn't look like Skelly's been the same in his last few races.
Yeah, you're right, Dan. I mean, his speed figures feel like they're holding up pretty well, but they've tried him in some tougher races since his return stateside, and it feels like maybe he's just not quite up to top competition. He's a good horse. He's got a lot of early speed. The one thing, least surprising news in the world when you start going through this field, at least the pre-entries, 6 furlong Breeders' Cup Sprint, there's a ton of speed in this race.
I guess going into Skelly's last race, one of the concerns was he wasn't breaking as sharp as he was before he went overseas, and then he would have to rush up to make the lead, and that took some of the starch out of him. I didn't really see that excuse last time out at Churchill Downs. He broke well, he cleared to the front, he got beat by a horse that you would think earlier in the year he would have handled.
Yeah, that's very, very true, Dan. I mean, listen, we'll see how it all plays out as far as the wagering goes come Breeders' Cup Day, but it just feels like Skelly, he's probably not up to this kind of competition, it doesn't seem like, and if he does somehow wind up going off favorite, could be an opportunity there.
Nakatomi was third in this race last year, and he was way closer to the pace than usual. He likes to make one run, although he is tactical enough to stay close if the fractions aren't very hot, as in this race. The Alfred G. Vanderbilt at Saratoga, where Skelly made the lead, didn't really go very fast. Nakatomi just grinds him down and is better than he is under the line.
Yeah, he just overwhelmed Skelly at the end of this race. Nakatomi got a great ride from Tyler Gaffalione in this race just to keep himself in range, but he was also an easy winner with a 105 buyer speed figure, which, by the way, is the same figure he earned in the Breeders' Cup Sprint last year. His most recent start was maybe a step in the wrong direction, Dan, but he just got too far away that day on a track where you did not want to be far away.
You really hit the nail on the head there. All the trainers I talked to that day felt that speed was king. Nakatomi was really up against it, rallying from the back of the pack. And as a prep race, it probably sets him up just right for this spot, a race that, as you mentioned, has a lot of early speed. And a horse that's likely going to add to the early pace is Federal Judge, a horse that's just been on an absolute roll recently for trainer Brad Cox. Let's watch Federal Judge win the Phoenix over Nakatomi. It's a speed track. He got to the lead. He goes sub 44 for the half mile, and they can't get him.
No, they don't even get close. They don't even come close to catching him here, Dan. He's much the best in this race. He's really lightly raced. He's come back off of a really long layoff this year as a 4-year-old, obviously in really good form. The question ahead of horse players now going into the Breeders' Cup, Dan, is he's won back-to-back races, triple-digit buyer speed figures, both times loose on the lead over tracks that were carrying speed.
Here's another speed horse, Mulligan. All he's done is win 4 in a row for Rudy Brissett, including a 105 buyer speed figure performance in the 4-go, going 7/8. Now, his last 3 wins have come going 7. He has won going 6 in the past. He might have to go a little bit faster in the early stages, cutting back to 3/4.
Yeah, he might, and we'll see how he handles that. But it's worth noting, this is a horse who has been successful without the lead in some of his races too. So I don't think he necessarily has to be on ascend. It was using his speed were the right tactics for this race, Dan, because it was Saratoga. Speed was good. This was Travers Day, and you wanted to be forward on that racetrack. So that worked for him, and it just wasn't a super strong field. But I'm not taking anything away from Mulligan. He did what he had to do there.
The interesting prop bet for the Breeders' Cup Sprint is who is the speed of the speed? You've got Federal Judge, you've got Skelly, but boy, Straight No Chaser is very, very fast when he's right. And last time out, it looked like they got him right again. It was not the strongest edition of the Santa Anita Sprint, but he showed his speed and he dominated to the tune of a 104 buyer. His race 2 starts back off of a lengthy layoff was an utter throwout because he stumbled and rushed.
Yeah, exactly. He's the most interesting horse in the race because he's clearly talented enough to go with horses like this. That it felt like he was just on the cusp of breaking into the upper ranks of the sprinters last year when he won on Preakness Day. Big figure, really impressive win. And unfortunately, he came out of the race injured and we didn't see him again for a long time. Seemed like he got back on track last time.
Raging Torrent has been very successful at Del Mar, going 7/8 of a mile. He just outgamed the Chosen Brawn. That's not easy to do. The Chosen Brawn is a win machine out in California. Raging Torrent battled him the length of the stretch and got his neck down in front. He's won his last 3 races. Now, all of those races were at 7/8 of a mile. Is it a lot to ask for a 3-year-old to face these fast horses and cut back to 6 with his running style? He has won from off the pace in the past. He might have to adopt those tactics in the Breeders' Cup.
Yeah, he might. We'll see. 3-year-old against older horses. I don't know if you worry as much about that towards the end of the year, but the running style could be a thing. But listen, this is a horse who they obviously liked him. They tried to make him sort of a distance horse earlier in his career, and that didn't quite work out for him. I'm not sure why they tried turf a couple of times there, but that didn't work either. Since they've come back to sprinting on the dirt, this horse has been nothing but good, and he's got figures behind it.
A horse that should get the right race flow is the 7-Gun Pilot. He's a closing sprinter, and he showed that when he won the Grade 1 Churchill Downs Stakes at 7/8 of a mile. I was really hoping for a good summer from this horse, and I'm not sure I got it. He was 3rd in the True North at Saratoga during the Belmont Stakes Festival. I didn't think he ran very well against Baby Yoda. I didn't think he ran great in the Forego, the race we saw where he was 2nd behind Mulligan. Maybe he just needs an electric pace and a lot of things to go his way.
Maybe he does. I'm sort of with you, though. I mean, it felt like he was just coming into his own, heading into that Grade 1 on Derby Day, and he got the job done there. His 2 subsequent starts, they've been less than compelling, Dan. Maybe there are excuses to be made. I feel like I remember not loving the trip he pulled in the True North 2 starts back, but he was only 2nd best last time.
International contenders abound in the Breeders' Cup. The largest amount of international pre-entries in Breeders' Cup history. 2 horses from Japan, 8 and 9 on the list. That's Don Frankie. That's Remake. Don Frankie just won last time out in Japan. Not sure about the caliber of competition he beat, but he's won 8 of 17. Remake might be a little bit more interesting. He won in Korea last time out. He's a horse that's traveled and he's won in Saudi Arabia. He might be a little bit of a sleeper.
Yeah, I like that about Remake, too. It seems like he's got a little bit of quality to him, and they've moved him around a little bit, tried some tough competition. He stood up to it well. Of course, he's the one who beat Skelly when they shipped him overseas.
Mufasa won the Grade 3 Vosburg last time out, but the sprint is his second preference. He might be aiming for the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. Again, go to DRF.com/Breeders' Cup for all of the pre-entries and all of the latest news for the Breeders' Cup Sprint. It's a wide open race. We'll see if Skelly can get back to winning form when it matters.
Hey, buddy. Let me tell you something. If you really enjoyed this great content, just click the like and subscribe button right here. And if you enjoy the race of the day, stakes previews and lots more starring me, please click right here. You're not gonna regret it.